So this brings us to the final bit in the group. And this is, in a sense, the most difficult bit to understand. Not to understand, it's very easy to understand, but to accept. It's very difficult for researchers to accept that this is a necessary thing to do. And this is about understanding the emotional imprint. Now, the emotional imprint is something that I have talked about already in relation to a French-American researcher called Clotaire Pai, who publicises, you know, the broad spectrum of his work. It's very well published on the internet. So if you want to Google this guy, you can find out a lot about him. I won't bother to go over it here. But the imprint means that I am after the emotion that was associated with my first memory of a particular brand or product. And I was extremely dubious about how this was done, because the way this is done is that you've got to get respondents now who are already sitting on the floor. You've now got to get them to get a pillow and to lie down. And I don't mean sit up, and I don't mean relax on a chair or on a couch. I mean lie down, no shoes, lie down on a nice, comfortable, clean, carpeted floor, right, that you're using. And then you've got to dim the lights, turn off the lights, and you've got to get them to relax. And you don't tell them what this is all about, you just get them to do it. It's very surprising. By this stage, I mean, the respondents have already been lying on the floor and writing stuff down and rolling around a lot of the time, so they're not fussed about lying down at all. So you get them to lie down, you get them to relax, you do some sort of breathing exercises, you get them to totally relax, to clear their mind, to focus on themselves, and then you take them on a journey, and I won't tell you exactly how I do this, but you'll develop your own way of doing this. Take them on a journey into their past, into their first memory. And I'll tell you right now, I won't tell you exactly how I do it, but it can't be done by just saying to them, can you please remember your first memory? You've got to take them on the journey through their memory, down to the first time they remember X, Y, or Z. Right? So it takes about 10, 15, 20 minutes of relaxation and this exercise to get them right to the point of their first memory. You get them to recall their first memory. Then you take them forward in time to their most powerful memory, and then so this takes about 20 minutes or so, and then you turn the lights on, you wake them up, if you like, and then you get them to write down all the details about their most powerful and first memory. Now, this is not something I've made up. This is something that comes from Clotaire Pai. When I first read about this, I was extremely dubious. I thought, this is overkill. You don't need to get respondents to do this. But I realised I was blocking this out because I was uncomfortable about asking respondents to lie down. It was me. So when I overcame that blockage and that fear, and I actually got them to do that, and I took them on the journey back to their first memory, and they wrote it all down, and then I took the story, I took these memories and read them later on, I realised that this guy Rapai was onto something pretty big. He was onto something quite huge, because what people remember staggered me. The details of what they remembered, the context of what they remembered, the age that they were when they remember. Some people go back to age 2, 3, 4, 5, it depends on what the subject matter is, but it is staggering what people are capable of remembering and the detail involved as well. But this is very personal stuff, and they don't put a name on their sheet that they write on, and they don't read this out, and you tell them from the outset, you will not read this out. I will collect it, I will not know who wrote it. So please, write down everything, and you've got to stress to them that no detail is too insignificant. In fact, you've got to say to them the details are the most important thing here. Now, are respondents actually accessing their very, very first memory? Look, we don't know, right? We will never know that. However, they are accessing an archaic memory of the product. They are accessing something that has imprinted them. Now, I studied psychology, and I understood what the word imprint meant, but I never understood its significance in marketing. The imprint, that first imprint, and not just the context, but the emotion that is associated with that imprint, is actually very, very important. It's one of the key pieces of information for the brand or the product or whatever, of the whatever we're studying, right, of what we're trying to understand. So, the reason that we get people to lie down and relax is because we want to get them into a dreamlike state. And as Rapai says, when you wake up in the morning after you've been dreaming for a few hours every night, when you first wake up, you can kind of recall a bit of your dream. Right? But then as the day progresses, the dreams fade, and then you forget them entirely by the end of the day. This is what happens most of the time. It's because your cortical brain, when you wake up, your cortical brain is not yet fully functioning, right? So it's not cleaning house, which means your emotions are still at the fore of your perception. Later on, as your cortical brain kicks into gear, so we get up, we drink coffee, we go to work, our cortical brain kicks into gear, and it does what Rapai says, it cleans house. It cleans up these memories and it cleans up these dreams, which are basically pictures of our subconscious, really. So it cleans them up and it represses them. That's why we've got to get people, it's important. You can't just get people to write down their first memory. You've got to get them to lie down, to get into this semi-sleep state, to wake them up and to immediately write them down before they've woken up fully, before their cortical brain is fully into gear. And that information is extremely powerful. Right? Now, there's no right or wrong way to do this and, and how you get them to their first memory or whatnot. These are just suggestions that I'm making. But that information will give you, some of the most potent information that you can ever provide to a marketer. And I say that with all confidence because I was dubious of that process until I went through it myself. And from the outset, it was clear to me that this process was actually giving us really powerful information that we were not getting in any other way, that was impossible to access by not performing this task with the respondent or with the participant as well.